ज्ञानयोगः श्री अर्जुन उवाच अनाश्रितः कर्मफलं कार्यं कर्म करोति यः स सन्न्यासी च योगी च न निरग्निर्यचाक्रियः.
Supreme
Yeah, please. Sorry.
No, sorry. Did you say the whole verse? Sorry, Mataji, I interrupted in the middle.
Yes, I finished the first one.
Okay, sorry. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, one who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as he is obligated is in the renounced order of life, and he is the true mystic, not he who lights no fire and performs no duty.
यं सन्न्यासमिहिति प्राहुर् यागं तं विद्धि पाण्डव न यः सन्न्यस्तसङ्कल्पो योगी भवति कश्चन.
What is called renunciation? You should know to be the same as yoga, or linking oneself with the Supreme. O son of Pandu, for one can never become a yogi unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification.
आरुरुक्षोर्मुने योगं कर्म कारणमुच्यते योगारूढस्य तस्यैव शमः कारणमुच्यते.
For one who is nuked in the eightfold yoga system, work is said to be the means. And for one who is already elevated in yoga, cessation of all material activities is said to be the means.
यदा हीनेन्द्रियार्थेषु न कर्म स्वनुषज्जते सर्वसंकल्पसन्न्यासी योगारूढस्तत्योज्यते.
A person is said to be elevated in yoga when, having renounced all material desires, he neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in fruitive activities.
उद्धरेदात्मनात्मानं नात्मानं वसादये आत्मैव यात्मनो बन्धो आत्मैव रिपुरात्मनः.
One must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well.
बन्धुरात्मात्मनस्तस्य येनात्मैवात्मना जितः अनात्मनस्तु शत्रुत्वे वर्तेतात्मैव शत्रुवत्.
For him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy.
जितात्मनः प्रशान्तस्य परमात्मा समाहितः शीतोष्ण सुख दुःखेषु तथा मानापमानयोः.
For one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same.
ज्ञान विज्ञान तृप्तात्मा कूटस्थो विजेतेन्द्रियः युक्त इत्युच्यते योगी समलोष्ट्राश्रमाचकन्.
A person is said to be established in self-realization and is called a yogi or mystic when he is fully satisfied by virtue of acquired knowledge and realization. Such a person is situated in transcendence and is self-control. He sees everything, whether it be pebbles, stones, or gold, as the same.
सुहृद्मित्रार्युदासीनां मध्यस्थद्वेषबन्धुषु साधुष्वपि च पापेषु समबुद्धिर्विशेष्यते.
A person is considered still further advanced when he regards honest well-wishers, affectionate benefactors, the neutral, mediators, the envious friends and enemies, the pious and the sinners, all with an equal mind.
Yogi yunjita satatam atmanam rahasi sthitah ekaki yat chittatma nirashira parigraha.
A transcendentalist should always engage his body, mind, and self in relationship with the Supreme. He should live alone in a secluded place and should always carefully control his mind. He should be free from desires and feelings of possessiveness.
शुचो देशे प्रतिष्ठाप्य स्थिरमासनमात्मनः नात्युष नात्युच no sorry नात्युच्छ्रितं नातिनीचं चैलाजिनकुशोत्तरम्.
Mataji, you reading this 12th verse as well?
Okay. तत्र काग्रं मनः कृत्वा यथा चित्तेन्द्रियक्रियः उपविश्यासने युञ्ज्यां द्योगमात्मविशुद्धये.
To practice yoga, one should go to a secluded place and should lay kusa grass on the ground and then cover it with a deer skin and a soft cloth. The seat should be neither too high nor too low and should be situated in a sacred place. The yogi should then sit on it very firmly and practice yoga to purify the heart by controlling his mind, senses, and activities and fixing the mind on one point.
समं कायाशिरो ग्रीवं धारयन्नचलं स्थिरः सम्प्रेक्ष्य नासिकाग्रं स्वं निश्चाष्णानवलोकयन्. प्रशान्तात्मा विगतवीर्य ब्रह्मचारी व्रते स्थितः मनः संयम्य मच्चित्तो युक्त आसीत मत्परः.
One should hold one's body, neck, and head erect in a straight line and stare steadily at the tip of the nose. Thus, with an unagitated, subdued mind, devoid of fear, completely free from sex life, one should meditate upon me within the heart and make me the ultimate goal of life.
युञ्जन्नेवं सदात्मानं योगो नियतमानसः शान्तिं निर्वाणपरमां मतः संस्थामधिगच्छति.
Thus, practicing constant control of the body, mind, and activities, the mystic transcendentalist, his mind regulated, attains to the kingdom of God or the abode of Krishna by cessation of material existence.
नात्यश्नतस्तु योगिस्ति न चोकान्तमनश्चद्नतः न चाति स्वप्नशीलस्य जाग्रतो नैव चार्जुन.
There is no possibility of one's becoming a yogi, O Arjuna, if one eats too much or eats too little, sleeps too much or does not sleep enough.
युक्ताहार विहारस्य युक्तचेष्टस्य कर्मसु युक्तस्वप्नावबोधस्य योगो भवति दुःखः.
He who is regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, and work can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system.
यदा विनियतं चित्तम् आत्मन्येवावतिष्ठते निःस्पृहः सर्वकामेभ्यो युक्त इत्युच्यते तदा.
When the yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desires, he is said to be well established in yoga.
यथा दीपो निवातस्थो निगते सोपमा स्मृता योगिनो यत चित्तस्य युञ्जतो योगमात्मनः.
As a lamp in windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist, whose mind is controlled, remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendent self.
यत्रो परमते चित्तं निरोद्धं योगसेवया यत्र चैवात्मनात्मानं पश्यन्नात्मनि तुष्यति सुखमात्यन्तिकं यत्तद् बुद्धिग्राहमतीन्द्रियम् वेत्ति यत्र न चैवायं चितश्चलति तत्त्वतः यं लब्ध्वा चापरं लाभं मन्यते नाधिकं ततः यस्मिन् स्थितो न दुःखेन गुरुणापि विचाल्यते तं विद्या दुःखसंयोग वियोगं योगसंज्ञितम्.
In the stage of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from material, mental activities by practice of yoga. This perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness, realized through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of greatest difficulty. This indeed is the actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact.
निश्चयेन योक्तं योगो निर्वर्णचेतसा संकल्पप्रभवान् कामम् अस्तस्य सर्वनशेततः मनसैविन्द्रियग्रामं विनयम्य समन्ततः.
One should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with determination and faith and not be deviated from the path. One should abandon, without exception, all material desires born on mental speculation and thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, Hare Krishna, thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Sorry, we can't hear you.
Okay, Hare Krishna, I was muted. So thank you so much for the wonderful recitation, and thank you for having me here after a while. So thank you for that. So Hare Krishna, everyone. It's very nice to be in your virtual online association once more. And so I was thinking, I was reading this verse, is 6.4, correct? As far as Divyanam Prabhu has mentioned to me. So
Yes.
what I can do, I can read the verse and the purport, and then I'm going to share with you just this for you to read, and then we can do a bit of a discussion. So again, what I'm sharing with you is a website called bhagavad-gita.org. It's a bona fide commentaries, the four Sampradaya Vaishnava Acharyas, commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita, which is very helpful. Prabhupada was using this as well in his compilation of the Bhagavad Gita and utilizing for his Bhaktivedanta purports. So I'm going to read this text number 4. A person is said to be elevated in yoga when, having renounced all material desires, he neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in fruitive activities. Purport. When a person is fully engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, he is pleased in himself, and thus he is no longer engaged in sense gratification or in fruitive activities. Otherwise, one must be engaged in sense gratification, since one cannot live without engagement. Without Krishna consciousness, one must be always seeking self-centered or extended selfish activities. But a Krishna conscious person can do everything for the satisfaction of Krishna, and thereby be perfectly detached from sense gratification. One who has no such realization must mechanically try to escape material desires before being elevated to the top rung of the yoga ladder. Very wonderful verse. Uh, very nice verse. Basically, just a quick one. Everyone can hear me clear? Just a bit of a sound check and visual check. Everything okay?
Yes.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So, if you read through these through the purports of Vaishnava acharyas, including these four representatives of different sampradayas and Srila Prabhupada, it is mentioned here in this verse. It gives a clarification. It shows a clarification on those which qualify themselves to be engaged in dhyana yoga, or basically in meditation. So chapter number 5 was entitled Karma Yoga. So here it's Krishna very nicely specifies who is the person who creates the transition from karma to dhyana, or basically what are those qualifications. So let's just look on a bit of the Sanskrit. It's very interesting. If you look in the first stanza or the first part of the Sanskrit, it says Indriyari Artheshu. Indriyari Artheshu. So as we all know, Indriya means the senses, and Artha, right? Artha means gain, or usually what Prabhupada uses as a translation, this means like wealth, right? You have Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha, the four principal activities of a society. Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. And Artha is generally translated as wealth, or getting some gain, some material gain. So here it is said, Indriyari Artheshu, and is Prabhupada translated as sense gratification. So it literally means the gain of the senses. The one who gave up the gain of the senses, and also gave us Sarva Sankalpa. Sarva means all, and Sankalpa. This is very beautiful. Prabhupada I was listening to this class early on, and there's these two terminologies, right? Sankalpa and Vikalpa. Basically, which means they are the two principal activities of the mind, accepting and rejecting. And in this presentation, Prabhupada is saying that because we enter Krishna consciousness with still material mind, with material intelligence, therefore all of our accepting and rejecting is based on our previous lifestyle. So when we enter Krishna consciousness, that's why Prabhupada always was emphasizing studying books, right? Studying spiritual literature, engaging in reading Bhagavad Gita like you all do, and studying Srimad Bhagavatam, because what happens to this material or Sankalpa and Vikalpa on the level of the mind, again, Bhagavad Gita emphasizes, right, these different levels of making decision, right? On the level of the soul, on the level of the intelligence, level of the mind, and level of the senses. So when we enter Krishna consciousness, the Sankalpa and Vikalpa, the accepting and rejecting, most of the time, and for most people, is on the level of the mind. And the three aspects of the mind, thinking, feeling, and willing, are very much predominant in all of our making decisions. So when Prabhupada was emphasizing studying spiritual philosophy or spiritual literature, what he meant is that the Sankalpa and Vikalpa changes its format. It's still based on accepting and rejecting, but not anymore on the level of the mind, but rather going one level or two levels up, which is level of the intelligence and level of the soul. So when you're studying spiritual transcendental literature, what happens, you start accepting and rejecting things based on a completely different platform, on the platform of minimum, on the platform of the intelligence, and on the spiritual platform. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada had a very simple method to kind of to filter between good and bad things. One of the method was, or the method was, accept everything which is beneficial for spiritual life and reject everything which is not beneficial for a spiritual life. Therefore, sankalpa and vikalpa is eternally present within our consciousness, within our society. And as you can look, the modern society is structured in such a way that discrimination or sankalpa and vikalpa is something which is very much rejected, right? If you use this term discrimination, straight away everyone goes into like a alert mode. Why are you speaking about discrimination? We are all equal, everything is okay, everything is good. But sankalpa and vikalpa is ultimately a term which is always utilized and always very much predominant within our psyche. But the decision which is made is on which level we're utilizing this sankalpa and vikalpa, on the level of the mind, senses, intelligence, or preferably on the level of the soul. So which is spiritually beneficial or not beneficial. So this is something to Indriyari Arteshu and Sarva Sankalpa. Then another terminology is sannyas. Sannyas in general, obviously we know that sannyasi means the one who is performing renunciation. So within this verse, Krishna is emphasizing that previously he was speaking about karma yoga. Now he's saying what is the next step after karma yoga in the yoga ladder. So for you to perform karma yoga, you have material desires. You still possess a lot of material desires to facilitate. And what karma yoga is providing facilitation within the boundaries of varnashram system. It means that I engage in karmic activities or karma khandic activities with intelligence, with the blessings of the scriptures, but I still understand there will be some kind of a material benefit coming out of it for me. So, excuse me. So, sannyas as such means that we don't fully eradicate the desires, the seeds, the bija, the lata of these material activities, which is ultimately the desire. So here what Krishna is saying that for only those people which not only eradicated the material activities as such, but they also eradicated the seed, the lata, the bija, the desire of the material activities. For those, the next step is recommended, which is dhyana. So you can see here very nicely presented by Ramanuja Acharya. Lord Krishna uses the compound word yoga rudhas, which is the adept in dhyana yoga, or the science of individual consciousness attaining communion with the ultimate consciousness by meditation. So let's just look at this for a moment. So here, what Ramanuja Acharya is saying, and what Prabhupada is also emphasizing, yoga rudha means the one, and I had it here. Okay, so here it is. Yoga arudha means the one. Where is it? So yoga arudha basically indicates that the one who connected with the Supreme Lord through yoga, the one who is on top, the one who accumulated the potency of the yoga. So only those personalities, and Prabhupada translated yoga arudha, elevated in yoga, those personalities which reach the top of the yoga specific karma yoga ladder, right? So the person who kind of finalizing his yoga journey, karma yoga journey, is eligible to create a new step towards dhyana yoga, or step towards the meditation. Continuing with Prabhupada purports, and Prabhupada written very beautifully. Otherwise, one must be engaged in sense gratification, since one cannot live without engagement. So ultimately, our whole life comes only to two decisions or 2 points, nothing else, nothing more. It's only decision between spiritual activities or material activities. If you boil down your whole life, your whole activities, it only comes to two decisions, and two decisions only: Krishna or Maya. And I think from all personal perspective that devotees are very much aware of this. I think devotees in general, they are aware when they're making that step towards Maya, and they're also very much aware when they're making those steps towards Krishna. And there is some kind of an internal reciprocation from the Paramatma in a form of a, I don't know, like a heart palpitation or some kind of like, oh, I shouldn't, but I will do it anyway, you know? So correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I can, maybe I can hear some reflections from devotees that when they engaging in, and you don't need to be ashamed to admit, all of us, we have some, obviously some inclination to still perform activities which are not fully spiritual. But when you go down that route, you still, you feel that there is some kind of a like Krishna is trying to tell you, no, 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 don't do that. Don't try to go that. It's just another type of sense gratification. But basically what is mentioned here is that you constantly have to perform some kind of activity. Activity has to be there because it's a natural position of the soul, is to be active, to be naturally seek for joy and for pleasure, as Prabhupada is sharing here. Without Krishna consciousness, one must be always seeking self-centered. Without Krishna consciousness, one must be always seeking self-centered or extended selfish activities. But a Krishna conscious person can do everything for the satisfaction of Krishna and thereby be perfectly detached from sense gratification. So this is interesting. Without Krishna consciousness, one must be always seeking self-centered or extended selfish activities. So we know we have a winter marathon behind us, and many times you meet all these different varieties of people. And one of them, you meet them and they're just like, yeah, I give some charity to, I give charity to a homeless guy. I'm supporting these so many charities, and I'm a good guy. I'm picking up garbage, and I'm feeding the homeless and all these things. But you know what? Actually, what people are saying is like, look how good I am. Look how satisfied I am to such a degree that I do other much more subtle self-centered activity, which is helping others. So it's an interesting thing that when you are to a certain degree satisfied and still on the material level, you wish to somehow or another materially or in other ways satisfy others as well. But Krishna consciousness is on a completely different level, on a completely different platform. It's a non-sentimental movement in a sense that it functions only on the basis of Praman, which is purely spiritual. And the Sankalpa and Vikalpa of spiritual activities are on a completely different level from the materialist, even if seemingly these two personalities may perform seemingly same activities. Yet our utilization of our intelligence is based on Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita. So this is the interesting point. Self-centered or extended selfish activities. So serving your nation, serving your country, your denomination, your race, ethnicity, or whatever it may be. But service is always required, always required. But the real thing is, the real difference between Dhyana yogi or karma yogi and bhakti yogi is the lata, the beach, the basically the desire to perform activity on its own. So let's say when a devotee is feeding others, he's feeding him with prasadam, and his desire is not to be glorified or to do extended selfish activities, but rather to give Krishna consciousness or Krishna prasad and same time facilitate the need of eating something to others. So this is the difference between karma, dhyana, and bhakti. It all depends on the seed, on the desire which is behind all the activities. Because it is said that within this material universe, you actually cannot do anything. Anything. Only thing you can do as an individual soul is to have a desire. And based on the intensity of the desire and the attention or the focus or the path of the desire, everything else is done, right? Because ultimately, and that desire also needs to come from a place, from a certain place. So it is said that within the material and spiritual world, ultimately, and this is even more secret, actually, within this material world, the desire doesn't come even from the soul. If it's not spiritual desire, it comes from the mind. Even more detail, it comes from the false ego. Because think about it in this way. If any decision made by you will come from the soul, all of your activities will be 100% spiritual. Everything connected to Krishna. No other, no left, no right, Eka Kurunandana, just Krishna. But because we have material desires, because we perform material activities, means that our desires are not coming from the soul, but from our ahankar, or in other words, from our false ego, which means who am I, who think I am, how old I am, where I'm from, am I a male or a woman or a child or this and that, whatever I am, that's ahankar, that's a false ego. Therefore, material activities, material desires are not coming from the soul, but from what you think you are, from ahankar, from the false ego. Does it make sense? Any questions so far? Otherwise, I continue with my presentation.
All clear, Prabhuji.
Any questions? No one? Nothing? Okay, continue. So Prabhupada writes, but a Krishna conscious person can do everything for the satisfaction of Krishna and thereby be perfectly detached from sense gratification. Okay, so another story. So I had this interaction with one Christian lady, and this was Northampton. And we've been discussing, she was nice, polite psychologist, so we have trade in common. So we've been discussing, and then I present this topic to her. I said, your desires and your facilitation of your material life, okay, let's put it a different way. Whatever you perform in your material life now corresponds to the level of your spiritual advancement, seemingly, or at least at the external vision. So basically what I was trying to say to her, that the more and more spiritually advanced you're becoming, the more and more you become, less and less you become attached to the material world or to material activities as such. And I presented this to her, like those which are spiritually seeking, naturally they don't need that much, but if something is offered to them, they know how to utilize it. Otherwise, Yukta Vairagya, right? Rupa Goswami, Six Goswamis, mendicants, but yet they've been building temples, dealing with aristocrats and kings, and dealing with a lot of money. But that's Yukta Vairagya. So I present this thing to her, that more spiritually advanced you are, the less you become attached to material activities, material results, and gathering things for yourself. If for Krishna or for God, that's fine. And she couldn't get this. She just couldn't get it in her head. And her way of functioning was that, well, God gave these things to us for us to enjoy. Well, and then I asked her, well, these things, do you own them or do these things own you? Can you live without them? Would you have stress if they've been taken away? Right? If you go to Bhagavad Gita, let's see. This is the real verses of the Bhagavad Gita. This is the real test of spiritual advancement. One of my favorite verses. This is 262. While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them, and from such attachment lust develops, and from lust anger arises. Wonderful. From anger, complete delusion arises, and from delusion, bewilderment from memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. And when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into material pool. Right? So what's the most important thing in Krishna consciousness? The actual top. Of course, association, but another thing. Contemplation. So the difference between karma, dhyana, and bhakti yoga is this one single word, contemplation. Dhyayataha, contemplation. The way how you observe everything in the material world. So you see, the difference between Karma Yogi, Dhyana Yogi, and Bhakti Yogi is nothing external, everything internal. That's the difference. Difference is how these individual people, personalities perceive everything around them. So this is the key to Krishna consciousness, contemplation. How do you contemplate? How do you view things? Do these things control you, or do you have equanimity within you? If this and this and this and this is taken away from you, are you okay with that? Is this and this and this is destroyed in your life? Are you okay with that? So the real test of Krishna conscious progress is not when you're gaining, but when you're losing, right? Every one of us are ready to be a hero. Every single one of us is ready to, go out and distribute 500 books a day. Every single one of us is ready to win the lottery. Every single one of us is ready to, give the best Bhagavatam class. Every single one of us is ready to do some service for Guru or this and that. Everyone is ready to be glorified. But the real question is, are you ready to be a failure? Are you ready to fail for Krishna? Are you very ready to be a zero? Are you ready to be, uh, you know, the lowest of the low? Are you ready to be overlooked? Are we ready to be kind of, how do you say, humbled? Are we ready for that? So this is the interesting thing. So the part of the Dhyana Yoga qualification is basically sannyas, renunciation. And you know what? Let me tell you one thing. Renouncing material things, it's slightly easier. It's easier. The real renunciation happens on the subtle level, right? Are you ready to renounce or to give up subtle desires? You may take up your phone out of your life, your computer, your car, your house, and this and that. But level than that is that desire still which hankers for those things. That's even more difficult. So real sannyas yoga is not putting saffron and danda and shaved head and this and that and uttarya through your chest. But real sannyas yoga starts fighting with the subtle seeds where all these things come sprouting from. So that's the real deal. And Krishna here says that's your qualification to enter dhyana. That's your qualification. When these seeds, when these desires are eradicated, that's the moment for you to come forward and step level further, which is dhyana or meditation. Only then. So the world becomes very cheap. People think that God is cheap. People think that all these spiritual activities are cheap. But the real deal, the real thing is, if you're creating a void in your life, in whichever way, like giving up things or try to give up desires, that void needs to be constantly full of something. Something has to be inside, just like Prabhupada says. When a person is fully engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, he is pleased in himself, and thus he is no longer engaged in sense gratification or in fruitive activities, right? So it is said, when one is pleased in himself, no need for sense gratification or fruitive activities. No fruitive activities, no sense of gratification, full in yourself, in Krishna. You become Atmaram, self-satisfied, satisfied by a relationship with Krishna, satisfied by serving Krishna. So that void always have to be full. So when you get rid of things, you have to inviting things. And more than anything, you have to first invite, and then naturally things will get away. Because the offshoots of Bhakti Yoga is Jnana and Vairagya, right? Knowledge and renunciation naturally follows Bhakti. So if someone engages in devotional activity, naturally what happens, his sense gratification goes away, his karma kandic rituals and desires will go away, and more than anything, Bhakti sprouts. And Bhakti as such has a tendency to destroy all of these unnecessary activities. Okay, so I spoke too much. Now is a Q&A. I hope you guys been listening. I enjoyed it actually reading these purports and listening. So more than anything, it's good fun for me. But if anyone feels inspired to share, please do so. Otherwise, all glories to Guru Gauranga and Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, thank you so much for a wonderful lesson. Really appreciate that. Prabhuji, one thing as a reflection and a question, if I may.
Please.
Prabhuji, one of the best things that I've heard is when you said that when you do the activities for Krishna, it's coming from the soul. And when you do the other material activities, it's coming from the mind. Because I always used to think that how am I constantly switching between the two? And so thank you so much for that, because it's really clear that whatever I'm doing for Krishna comes from the soul. So Prabhuji, then that leads to another question, because in one of the sessions, I think Vrindavan Chandra Prabhu said that mat karma krit. That means whatever I start, whatever activities I do, I mean, I know it's so silly, but whatever activities I do, when I go to the gym, I say, Krishna, I am surrendering my activity to you. Because if I am fit, if I am healthy, because I'm a bit of a gymaholic, so if I'm fit, I'm healthy, then I can pray more to you. I can do my malas more. So does that mean that all those activities that I'm doing, if I'm cooking, I'm always saying the mantra? That means every activities I'm doing is actually coming from my soul. Is that fair to say?
That's a
Or
very
not
good question.
necessarily?
That's a very good question. Let's answer it this way. You see, sometimes the mind and the intelligence, even despite being very materialistic, can actually give you sometimes good advice. So when you entered Krishna consciousness, somewhere or another, mind and intelligence was definitely involved. They said, yeah, you know what? It's a good thing. These people look like nice people. These books look like nice books. This process looks like a nice process. But we perform spiritual activities and still may retain certain material desires. What it means that our mind served us to such a wonderful degree that directed us to the perfect shelter, which is shelter of the Acharyas, Prabhupada, Guru, Bhagavata. The process on its own is perfect, without a flaw. It's perfect. Chanting is perfect. Mangalarti is perfect. Guru Puja is perfect. Japa is perfect. Not mine, but in such, Japa is perfect. You know, chanting Gayatri is perfect. All these activities are perfect. Yet the meditation behind them may not always be perfect, but the process is perfect. And that on its own is sufficient to get us to the goal, help us to go to the goal. So, yeah, taking care of the body is important, definitely. But to which degree are you doing it for Krishna? And to which degree are you doing it for yourself? That's the question, which you don't have to answer. I don't have an answer for it. But the thing is, the motivation for us to enter certain activity, what is the percentage of the motivation which is Krishna conscious, and percentage of motivation which is material?
Haribol. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Okay. Any other points? Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, there is something on the chat.
Okay,
On
something.
the chat, there is.
Is there a level on which we need to balance our ego of I am, woman, child, man, teacher, husband, wife, etc., with our understanding of ourselves as a soul? Okay, because we need to perform our prescribed duties with those temporary designations, or should those temporary designations? Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, good. This is perfect question. Very important one. So basically, what you just described is something called Svadharma and Sanatan Dharma. So Swadharma means I'm a man, this is my age, this is what I'm from, this is what I'm able to do, this is what I'm not able to do, this is my qualification, this is my desires, this and that. So Swadharma functions on this material reality, right? You are who you are, I am who I am, we have abilities, we have predispositions, we have uh, cultural duties, as a son, as a wife, as a husband, as a child, as this and that. And that needs to be understood. Yet it needs to be dovetailed. So within that scope of that Swadharma label, let's put it like that, Swadharma label, you have to make it Krishna conscious, right? I mean, you've written here, woman, child, man, teacher, husband, wife, etc. All of these aspects can be very much Krishna conscious. Woman, no jokes. I mean, mother is the first guru. Woman should be conscious. Child should be conscious, Krishna conscious. Man should be Krishna conscious. Teacher, no jokes. He should be Krishna conscious. Husband, Krishna conscious. Wife, Krishna conscious, all and so on. So Swadharma means being real with yourself on the level of who I am, what kind of a so-called material consciousness I have, which body I am in, and what are my duties, my prescribed duties, and make it Krishna conscious. And then always be aware that I'm a spirit soul, eternal servant of Krishna. And that's there. And utilizing your Swadharma to facilitate your Sanatana Dharma, which means, male or female, having that conscious of, yes, I have this material body, I have to act accordingly, I have to function accordingly, but same time facilitating all my material activities to such a degree that they direct me towards more and more understanding my dharma, my spiritual, my sanatana dharma, as an eternal servant of the Lord. So all these labels or designations, they should not, and they are not hampering for your spiritual life. But otherwise, very nice question. Thank you. Any other reflections, realizations, stories, pastimes, for those of you who book marathon, anything you want to share? I'm sitting now in the room and I'm isolating because I have a COVID, and I'm okay otherwise. I'm fine. Yeah, contracted it 2 days ago, but by Krishna's mercy, I have just a bit runny nose. And yeah, enjoying reading Bhagavatam and having space for my own as a brahmachari. That's something else. And yeah, missing the devotees, missing the darshan of the lordships. And yeah, but more questions, what you guys went through recently, anything you wish to share, either connected to the verse or any. I always like to ask these questions to the devotees, to brahmacharis in the ashram, in the evening of the day when things are wrapping up. I always ask them this one question. Ask them, how did you saw Krishna today in your life? How did you saw Krishna's hand in your life today? And believe it or not, so many beautiful realizations are coming out of devotees. You say, oh, I have nothing, but actually you do. You do have a lot of reflections. How did you saw Krishna today in your life? So that could be a question to you, all of you. Either you can share it here with us, or you can share it amongst you in your home. But try to ask these questions. They're very nice, and you will see how many wonderful things will come out of it. How did you saw Krishna today in your life? Any other questions? Okay, no more. So thank you so much for your wonderful time, for your wonderful association. I'm wishing you all the best. Oh, there's a question. Okay. Haribol, as this mentions. Okay, this is from chapter 9. Okay. O son of Prita, those who take shelter in me, though they are lower, both women, Vaishyas, merchants, well, Shudras, workers can approach me, the supreme destination. And suddenly, woman, oh, this was private. Okay. Anyway, I received a message, private. I'm not going to say from whom. Yeah, so there's this quotation from a private message. I hope it's okay to share. I mean, it's an eternal question which upsets many people. And it says here, "O son of Pritha, those who take shelter in me, though they be of lower birth, women, Vaishyas, as well as Shudras, can approach the supreme destination." And the question is, how come mothers become upset? So the question is, how come women become upset? Or, people get upset when Bhagavad Gita says of lower birth. Whew, okay, Hare Krishna. So the answer is, depends how do you see yourself. Like, I'm coming from a Shudra background, right? I'm a European. My father is a Shudra in terms of activity that he performs. He's working in a factory. I mean, he's kind of like a head of a department, but nevertheless. And I'm not really upset because it doesn't really matter, right? It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from. The real problem is how much you identify yourself. The real problem is, let me tell you, pastime, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, right? Great inspiration. He once went to Prabhupada and said, "Prabhupada, in your movement, there's a great prejudice, right? People look at me, I'm black, there's a discrimination." And when you ask a question like this, there's a subtle intention behind, right? Like, what do you want to hear as an answer? And I cannot tell, but seemingly, I would say that Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj wanted to hear some kind of a confirmation or, pat on the head or something like that, oh, don't worry. But what Prabhupada said to him was very interesting. He said, if you are disturbed by this, then you are no different from them. Basically, in other words, if they're calling you black or whatever, then and you feel disturbed by it, then you are no different from them. So what this indicates, obviously, we are living in a society, and society is on the level of the mind, or the level of the intelligence. Society functions more on the level of swadharma, which is on the level of the body, which is acceptable, understandable, what to do. But our perspective is also from the perspective of Sanatan Dharma, which is, I'm an eternal spiritual being, and the body of a woman or a man constantly changes, right? I know a person who was a man in his previous life, but because he was meditating too much on one specific woman, this life he became a woman. So man or woman doesn't really matter. The real thing is how much you are devoted to Krishna and what is in your heart. Hare Krishna. Thank you for the question. Otherwise, the time for me is to go to bed. And I don't know what is your program, New Year, if you're going to go party, Harinam party, or other parties or spiritual parties. And I'm wishing you a good evening. Happy 2022. Maybe blessed, maybe spiritual, and maybe better than these last 2 years of COVID isolation / jail. And I'm wishing to all of you to be happy, Krishna conscious, and more than anything, be Prabhupada conscious, because it's a big part of our spiritual movement. And I wish you all the best rounds in your life. I wish you best realizations from reading Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. I'm wishing you that you may have the best service opportunities in 2022. And yeah, all glories to Guru and Gauranga. Keep it real, keep it spiritual, and take care. Be safe. May your families are safe. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare
Really
Krishna.
lovely
Hare
class.
Krishna,
Hare Krishna
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.